All right, you are welcome to today's class. And I believe you were given some reading assignments. Can we discuss them, then we start to... Or you are not given any reading assignment? Hello, class?
Madam, we were given a reading assignment.
Yes, so let's address them, then we continue.
Hello, madam.
Yes. Yes, Ebenezer Adongo.
Good morning, madam.
How are you?
Yeah, madam. Fine. One of the reading assignment I can is you ask us to go and look at the cell membrane.
Okay.
And what I have about the cell membrane is it is a semi membrane. That means it allows substances to enter and not to enter the cell. And structurally, it's basically of phospholipid that is back to back.
Okay.
And what that means is having two layers of the phospholipid, and the lipid is made up of phosphate and then lipid. So you have the phosphate forming the head of the phospholipid layer, and then the lipid forming the tails of the phospholipid layer. So if I say back to back, it means that the tails are each other and then the heads are away from each other. So we have head found inside the cell, that is the interior part of the cell, and another head facing the outside or the exterior part of the cell, that is the external part of the cell. And then we have the phosphate side being water loving, or it attracts to water. That means it is hydrophilic. And then we have the tails aspect being it expels water. That means it is hydrophobic. And I also come across that because it contains hydrophilic and hydrophobic, one can say that cell membrane
Make up the entire cell memory. And we are saying it has the hydrophilic heads and then the hydrophobic tails. What it means is that the heads is water soluble. It allows water soluble substances to pass in between the heads. But the hydrophobic tails is water hitting, meaning it repels any fat soluble or lipid soluble substances. So it repels any substance that can't dissolve in this fat or lipids. All right. So I don't know if I asked you to also look at some of the materials or substances that can pass through the cell membrane. But before that, as Adongo has spoken about the phospholipid, and he also mentioned that it's a bilayer. So we have this phospholipids forming two layers, okay, with the tails facing each other and then the heads facing either the exterior or the interior of the cell membrane. So basically, that's the structure of the cell membrane. That's the abundant lipid that make up the cell membrane, phospholipids. And we have some small pores between these phospholipids that allows certain substances to pass through the cell membrane. All right. So aside the phospholipids, which other type of lipids did we find as components of the cell membrane? Which other lipids? Which other lipids we find to be part of the cell membrane? To four Kwame. Any other
Madam,
from the class? Yes, please, Anugo.
I came across cholesterol.
Okay, yes, but I want someone else. I want someone else to help with that. Any other from the class? Any other
Madam,
lipid?
cross glycolipid.
Glycolipid. Yes. So what makes up glycolipid?
Madam,
Adongo, please wait. Adongo, please wait. I'll call you when I want you to answer. Yes, Thelma.
Glycolipids are the carbohydrates that binds with lipids in the cell membrane.
Yes, so glycolipids from the name is made of the glycol part, which is a carbohydrate entity. And then you also have the lipids, which is made of the lipids that you are talking about. So glycolipids is an example of lipids that is found in the cell membrane. And what's the function of glycolipids in the cell membrane? What's the function of glycolipids in the cell membrane? Yes, and Andrea, Joe.
Hello, sister.
Yes.
Yeah, please. I also read I saw protein as part of one of the components of the cell membrane.
Yes, but please, before
And
we
then
move,
it says that,
Andrea, before we
sister,
move to the protein, can we finish on the lipids? Can we finish on the lipids? We mentioned the glycolipids. I wanted the functions of the glycolipids.
Okay, madam, please.
oh,
Who
okay.
is talking?
I
So,
read that.
Andrea, I'll get back to you. Okay, Andrea, I'll get back to you. Yes.
Madam,
Yes.
Madam,
Please,
please,
okay.
the glycolipid.
Yes.
Please, I learned that it maintains the stability of the cell membrane.
Who is talking? Catherine. Catherine.
Yes, madam.
Yes. So come again.
Madam, please. I learned that the glycolipid, it maintains the stability of the cell membrane.
It maintains the stability of the cell membrane. Glycolipids. Okay. Any other function of glycolipids?
Okay, madam.
Yes.
I
Hello,
also read
madam.
that.
Please let me call you, then you come in so that we have
Okay.
an organized class. Okay.
Okay, madam.
Yes. Yes. So who just spoke?
Madam, it's me.
Ali.
Antoinette.
Yes, madam.
Yes.
I
So
read that plays a role in the regulation of cell growth through the interaction with growth factors.
yes. So many of these glycolipids, they act as receptors, okay, to specific ligands, to specific chemicals, to specific hormones, okay, that regulate growth, development, that regulates differentiation, synthesis, and all that, okay. So most of these glycolipids, they are there as receptors to enable specific ligands to be attached to them for transmission of information, for signal transaction and all that. Okay. So aside phospholipids, aside glycolipids, which other lipids did we come across that that is found in the cell membrane. Which other lipid did we come across that is found in the cell membrane? Elizabeth. Joshua.
Yes, ma'am. I also learned of cholesterol itself.
Cholesterol, yes. So cholesterol, that's Joshua Benin. All right.
Yes.
Cholesterol, what's the function of cholesterol?
I was told that cholesterol it maintains the membrane fluidity. That is, at high temperatures, cholesterol acts to stabilize the cell membrane.
Exactly. So stability, cholesterol. Aside that as well, it also makes the cell membrane flexible. Okay, it's not rigid. It makes the cell membrane flexible. So when we say flexibility, we are saying that these phospholipids that is abundant in the cell membrane is able to shift from one point to the other or one position to the other. And it's the function of this cholesterol to hold them in their stability, and it also enables them to be flexible such that they can rotate from one point to the other, but still you have the cell membrane intact in as in how it is. You get it? So cholesterol mainly maintains stability of the cell membrane, also makes the cell membrane flexible. Okay. All right. Then we move to proteins. Andrea. Before Andrea comes in, someone is asking, can these glycolipids determine blood group of an individual? Blood grouping is mainly some antigens, specific antigens on the red blood cells. So these antigens are found in the red blood cell surface. It's not mainly a component of the cell membrane. I hope that is clear. So the cell membrane we are looking at the components of the cell membrane, what makes up the cell membrane. However, these antigens that determine someone's blood group is found on the surface of the cell membrane. I hope that is clear. All right. Yes, Andrea. If she is not ready, the protein component, can someone talk about the protein component of the cell membrane? Yes, Catherine.
Madam, please, the protein components, I learned that they are divided into two. We have the peripheral and the integral. And for the peripheral aspects, it acts as a receptor for hormones or neurotransmitters. And then one thing is that they are bound to the surfaces of the cell membrane, but they do not penetrate the lipid bilayers. And for the peripheral protein, they are temporal to the biological membrane, which they are associated to. But when you come to the integral protein, they are the cell membranes that are completely embedded in the bilayers of phospholipids. That's what I learned.
Yes. So before I come to the functions, as Catherine has described these proteins for us, we have two main proteins, the integral protein and then the peripheral protein. So the integral, as the name implies, is integrated into the cell membrane, meaning it's embedded, it's fixed inside the cell membrane. So that means it runs through or it runs across. Part of it is out, it's showing or is facing the exterior, and part of it is also facing the interior, running across the cell membrane. So it's integrated, it's integral. Then we have the peripheral, where it's attached to the exterior part of the cell membrane or it's attached to the interior part of the cell membrane. It doesn't run across the cell membrane. All right. So let's look at the functions. I think she mentioned the function of the integral protein as helping with cell-to-cell communication, signal transaction. I don't know if that she mentioned all these. Let's look at the functions of the integral protein. Integral protein. Set. Ade.
So the integral proteins helps in the attachment and transportation of things or minerals across the cell.
Yes, so mainly the integral protein helps with transport. That's the main function of integral proteins. Aside this, you can have others, but mainly most of these integral protein that we have in the cell membrane are transporting substances in and out of the cell. An example is a channel, an example, carrier proteins. We have pumps. All these are transporting molecules across the cell. Then we look at the last component of the cell membrane. We've spoken about lipids, we've done that of proteins. What is the last component of the cell membrane that you can look for? Aside Thelma, aside Seth, aside Adongo, aside Joshua. Class? The rest of the class, you didn't do the assignment? Yes, Latif. Is it Latif? Yes, Latif. Latif, your hand is up. Class, let's hear you.
Please, madam, the carbohydrate, that's Rashid.
Rashid, yes, Rashid.
We said there are large molecules made up of simple sugars.
Yes.
And they also have allowed the cells to communicate.
Okay.
And they act as sites where chemical signaling of molecules such as hormones can attach to other cells.
Yes.
We also said they allow cells to identify each other as part of a larger multicellular organism.
Good. Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
You.
Well done. Well done. So these are the functions of the carbohydrates. So when we are reading about the functions, did you come across the types of carbohydrates that's in the cell membrane? Rashid.
Yes, madam.
Yes. Can you mention the types of carbohydrates in the cell membrane?
Well, I think I didn't read much into it. It's just this that I got. Yes.
All right. Any other from the class? The types of carbohydrates? Any other? Veronica, you are saying glycocalyx. What is glycocalyx?
Yeah, madam.
Yes.
Madam, it helps in the recognition and the protection against immune damage.
Yes, that's the function. But what is it? When you say glycocalyx, what is it?
It is a layer. It's a type of carbohydrates.
Okay. So it's a layer of carbohydrates. Okay, yes, that's fine. But we want to look at the functions, the components, the two main components of carbohydrates we have. Yes, Andrea. Yes, Andrea.
Yes, sister, please, I saw glycoproteins and glycolipids. I don't know if they are the two types of the protein when attached to the protein and the lipids.
Exactly. So we have glycolipids and then glycoproteins. So these carbohydrates are attached to either proteins or carbohydrates. And when they are attached to lipids, we call them glycolipids. When they are attached to proteins, we call them glyco. Mention the functions. Aside this, were you given any reading assignments again?
Ma.
Yes.
Please, I just you asked one of my colleagues about the glycocalyx.
Yes.
I just want to add that they are specific individuals. They give genetic makeup of the cell. So each individual has different identity of glycocalyx.
Okay.
So my glycocalyx identity is different from any other person's to glycocalyx identity. That's what I came across. I said they give identity to cells, and they are specific individuals.
Okay.
Yes, my glycocalyx identity will be different from any other person's glycocalyx identity. That is what I came across.
Okay. Okay, that is fine. And then with reference to the cell membrane, also, this glycocalyx is composed of the glycolipids and then the glycoproteins. Okay, and some other proteins. So is this components that form a layer that covers the cell membrane? Okay, that also serve as a protection to the cell, aside the genetic makeup that it represents as well. Okay, so when you talk of glycocalyx, it's just a composition of the glycolipids, the glycoproteins that you've mentioned. And as you've mentioned, its function. All right. Was this the only assignment I gave? Let's speed up and move to what we have for today.
Ma.
Yeah.
Some people barrier and add another term, and you ask them that if you ask them to explain what is this. When we were talking about
again,
when we were talking about the function of the cell membrane.
Yes.
Mention barrier.
Barrier.
Yes. And yes, you said they should go and read about. Today you ask them about what they meant by that.
Okay. I think I've forgotten about that. So I asked them about what barrier is. Are those students in class today? Let me hear from you. Obviously, they will own out. So is it Adongo?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, I've forgotten the question, and I can't get you clearly. You were saying the difference between what and what?
Yes, you asked us to give the function of the cell membrane. And the mention barrier, you said you were interested, but then this today they will tell you what they mean by the barrier.
Yeah, okay. I thought I explained it that day. Okay, so the barrier is just how you understand barrier. Okay, when we say barrier, that means we have some components there that would regulate how some substances will pass through the cell membrane. And this barrier also limits others. Yeah, I think I explained it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the cell membrane is acting as a physical barrier where it prevents some molecules from passing through, and it also allows some molecules to pass through. So it regulates what comes in and out of the cell. That's the meaning of cell barrier, or the cell membrane as a barrier for the cell. All right. Any other questions to be discussed, or we continue? All right.
Please.
Yes.
Please, madam.
Yes.
Please, I wanted to
I am asked about the 3 types of glycolipids. Because from my side, when I was reading, I saw glycosphingolipids, glycoglycerolipids, and glycosphatidylinositones. I didn't get it clearly.
Okay, so those are, well, as I explained, please mute your microphones for us. So as I explained, the glyco, whenever you have glyco and then lipids, you have two components. You have the carbohydrates and the lipids. So for the lipids, we have different types of lipids. For the the carbohydrates, you have different types of carbohydrates. So when you have any of these coming together to form this glycolipid, you have a different or a type of glycolipid. And this is more into biochemistry, not physiology. Okay, so when you're looking at the different glycolipids, of course, you have different types based on the different lipids and carbohydrates we have. So that is more into biochemistry, looking at the different glycolipids, their components, and all that. But ours, we are just emphasizing on the main components of the cell membrane and what they do physically.
Okay, thank you, madam.
You're welcome. All right, so let's continue. So
hello, madam.
Yes.
Madam, sorry, madam, please, I want find out about the types of the proteins. I also came across one. I was trying to raise my hand by my side. The network was down. I came across another third one that they say lipid anchoring protein or something. As part of, yeah, I don't know whether it can be added to the 2 types or it's just 2 major types, integral and peripheral.
Yes, it's the main 2 types. There are 2. That's the integral and then the peripheral.
Okay.
The lipid anchored protein can be classified under peripheral proteins.
Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right. So I believe we finished with the cell. We talked of the generalized cell, the specialized cell. We also talked of the tissues. Did we talk about tissues?
Yes,
right.
So yes, madam.
Tissue, and then we also move to organs. Did we talk about organs?
No, madam. We haven't talked about the organs.
All right. So with the organs, we are saying the organs are made of tissues. Okay. So you have any of these 4 types of tissues coming together to form an organ. And the organs, we can have a lot of them coming together to perform a necessary life function. So 2 or more organs come together to form a system that perform a life activity or a life. And we can have 2 or more different types of tissue coming together to form the organ. And you can also have all the tissues coming together to form a particular organ. So we have a lot of organs.
You're making nice.
In the system, and I'm sure we know almost every organ in the system as clinicians or working with humans. We know all organs of the human body. So you can look at the different components, tissue components of the organs for further reading or studies. Probably we can discuss that in our next class. The different tissues that make up each organ in the system. When you take the brain, which tissue makes up the brain? When you take the heart, which tissue makes up the heart? When you take the stomach, kidney, bladder, intestines, liver. Okay. When you take these organs, which tissue types make up this organ? We can look into that. So we are saying that these organs come together to perform a similar function. For example, when you take the digestive system, you can have the stomach, the liver, the gallbladder, the pancreas, the small intestine, the large intestine, the rectum. All these organs come together to form a system, and they are performing a particular similar function, that is digestion. Then you look at the system. So at the systemic level, we have a lot of systems. That is making sure that you as an organism, you perform all the necessary life activities of functions. For example, when you take in food, the digestive system will break down the food. Then nutrient is absorbed at the small intestinal level. Then the nutrient gets into the blood. It's the circulatory system made of the heart blood vessels that will circulate blood, every tissue, every cell. When this blood gets to the kidney filters the blood, and then it produces waste such as urine. Then the blood also flows to the lungs where it picks up oxygen, then moves back to the heart. The heart pumps this blood to every part of the body. So these are few systems that work together to make life healthy and life worthy. Aside that, also you can see the integumentary system that protects the body as a whole from external environment. The main organ of the integumentary system is the skin. So this, among others, work together for all life processes to be done effectively. So basically in physiology 1 and 2, we are going to talk about all these living systems. Starting with the nervous system, and we continue with the cardiovascular system, continue with the respiratory system, look at the skeletal system. We also look at the urinary system, the reproductive system, look at the endocrine, the integumentary, then we also look at the lymphatic system. Skeletal and muscular will be together when we are doing it. So basically, these are the systems that we'll be looking at. So as an organism, we are consist of some systems. And as an organism, we perform some 6 important life processes: metabolism, responsiveness, movement, growth, differentiation, reproduction. All these helps make sure that you're able to do what you are supposed to do as an individual. And I'm saying in health, all parts of the body must be functioning together in a process called homeostasis. As you move on, we explain more of homeostasis. So you have some survival needs as individuals. First of all, you need nutrients to survive. Nutrients comes from what we take in: carbohydrates, fat, proteins, minerals, vitamins, etc. All these is what we gain our nutrients for the cells to produce energy and for the cells to also build up. Okay, so you are saying nutrients is one essential mineral or essential component that your system needs. Then we also have oxygen. Oxygen is also essential for energy release, that's for ATP production. Then we also have water, which is very important for chemical reactions. That's the site for chemical reactions. And also in transport, we need the blood to transport many molecules, many substances in and out of the body. All right. Then you also need normal body temperature. That is essential for how the cells function effectively. The cells work under normal temperature, normal pH, and normal levels of some molecules. So when you provide all these, then you are surviving. Then you should also have appropriate atmospheric pressure that will aid in you breathing in for your system to get oxygen. So the appropriate atmospheric pressure enables an individual to breathe in, and also for gaseous exchange. And as we get to the respiratory system, you learn the mechanics of breathing and how changes in pressure enables you to breathe in and breathe out. Body fluids and homeostasis. With this chapter, we are going to look at the various body fluids that we have, what is found inside the cell, what is found outside the cell, the various types of fluid that is found outside the cell. We also look at homeostasis. How is it that the body is able to maintain nearly constant internal environment despite the changes that occurs around you? For example, we have normal volume of water that is supposed to be in your body to maintain blood pressure, normal blood pressure. However, when you take a lot of water, how is it that the body is able to still maintain this normal blood volume despite the increase in water? This amount, a lot of examples we are going to discuss in this cases. So we are saying body fluids are defined as dilute watery solutions containing dissolved chemicals inside or outside the cell. When we talk of fluid, a fluid is water plus dissolved substances. Any fluid is made of water, and within the water, you have some dissolved substances or chemicals. So we are saying these body fluids, you can have some inside the cells, and also have some surrounding the cell or outside. Maintaining the volume and composition of the body fluid is very important as to also help maintain a constant internal environment. So we have two main body fluids. We have intracellular fluid, which is the fluid within the cell. ICF, intracellular fluid, is the fluid within the cell. Then we have extracellular fluid, which is the fluid outside the cell. Now, 2/3 of extracellular fluid. 2/3 of extracellular fluid is interstitial fluid. What is interstitial fluid? Interstitial fluid is an extracellular fluid, and that is the fluid surrounding the cells. Right around the cells, we have some fluid that surrounds the cells. That is the interstitial fluid. And the interstitial fluid is an example of extracellular fluid. I hope that is clear. Don't forget to be taking assessment at the end of the class. Be taking assessment at the end of the class. So to take it again, we are saying that intracellular fluid is the fluid inside the cells. Extracellular fluid is any fluid outside the cell. So outside the cell, we have the fluid surrounding right around the cells. That is interstitial fluid. Aside the interstitial fluid, we are saying we have other extracellular fluids that we can mention. First one is blood plasma. Blood plasma is the fluid part of the blood. When you take a whole blood, it's made of the fluid part and then blood cells. Blood cells like red blood cells, white blood cells, cell fragments, which are platelets. So these cells are found in a fluid called blood plasma. Then we have the lymph, which is also an example of extracellular fluid within lymphatic vessels. And we have cerebrospinal fluid. This is an example of extracellular fluid in the brain and the spinal cord. We have synovial fluid, which is found in joints, okay, in between bones. Then we have aqueous humor, which is an extracellular fluid in the ocular space or in the eyes, the spaces of the eye, ocular space. Then, so to better classify body fluids, we are saying we have two main categories: intracellular fluids, extracellular fluids. Under extracellular fluids, you can talk of interstitial fluid, which is the fluid surrounding the cell. You can talk of plasma, which is the fluid part of the blood. Then, this lymph and cerebrospinal fluid, synovial fluid, aqueous humor, all come under another classification called transcellular fluid. Transcellular fluid. So to take it again, we have interstitial fluid, then we have plasma, then we have transcellular fluid. Under transcellular fluid, we have lymph, we have cerebrospinal fluid, we have synovial fluid, we have aqueous. I hope that is clear. Any questions up to this point? Joshua. Joshua, your hand is up. Jessica.
Yes, madam. Please, my problem is with the extracellular fluid. Later, you came and mentioned of transcellular fluid too.
Yes.
So
the transcellular fluid is made of lymph, cerebrospinal, synovial, aqueous. You get it? So all these four I've mentioned are under transcellular fluids. So the three main types of extracellular fluids are interstitial fluid, plasma, and then transcellular fluids. Then under transcellular fluids, you have the lymph, the cerebrospinal, the synovial, and the aqueous.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much.
All right. Yes, Latif, right? Latif, your hand is up. All right. So, Albert.
Madam, I just want to confirm something, the type of fluid. If I get you right, you said we have the intracellular, the extracellular. Then under the extracellular, we have the interstitial, the transcellular, and the plasma.
Yes.
Fluid. Then when we take the transcellular fluid, that we now also have the lymph, the blood, the lymph, and I was able to capture only the lymph.
All right, so we have the lymph, cerebrospinal fluid, synovial fluid, aqueous fluid. So when you take the extracellular fluid, 2/3 of it is the interstitial fluid, the fluid that surrounds the cells.
Okay.
Then the 1/3 is made of the plasma. Okay. Then you have less than 1% made of these transcellular fluids. So these transcellular fluids are found in joints, in some spaces. For example, the pleural cavity, in between the lungs and then the chest wall. That fluid is also an example of transcellular fluid. So these small volumes of fluid found in these spaces are under transcellular fluids.
Okay. Thank you, madam.
All right. So I mentioned that the fluid is made of water and then dissolved substances. And all these fluids that we've mentioned of abundantly is water. For example, when you take blood plasma is 90% water. You have 10% dissolved substances, proteins, hormones, chemicals, and so on. Okay. All right. So we are saying that as an individual, you have a normal total body water, TBW, total body water. And this total body water varies, okay? This total body water varies by age, gender, degree of obesity, amount, and other factors. Now, I want us to discuss this right here. Not a reading assignment, right? Why do you think age is a factor age is a factor in influencing difference in total body water? Or why do we say a child of, let's say, 8 years would have total body water more or less than you, an adult, let's say 30 years? Why is it that age is a factor in total body water variation? Class? Or I should give it to you as a reading assignment so that you make maximum research. So let's do that, then we move on. Okay. So look for why age, gender, and the degree of obesity are factors that influences total body water variation. So let's discuss that next. Okay, let's continue. All right. So at this point, you should know what an internal environment and an external environment is. So let me ask the class, from what I have said so far concerning body fluids, I know it's not really that, but can someone differentiate between internal environment and external environment from your little knowledge in homeostasis? Yes, class.
Hello, madam.
Yes.
Yeah, about the internal environment.
Who is speaking?
This is Bright. Nana Kwame was saying.
Right, Nana Kwame will say, okay.
Yeah. About the internal environment, it's within the body.
Okay.
Internal. If there has been a problem, a change in the structure or of the cell, definitely it might be shrink or it might be hypertrophied. And if that thing comes, the amount that it received, the amount of water that it received at that time, it will decrease or it will increase. So these factors leads to making the body cells or the body absorbing water reduce or increase. And again, if there case be a disease like diarrhea or vomiting, definitely there will be a change. And the external environment is change of weather. Like in the dry season with this sun shining high, definitely it brings a little dehydration to the body. So absorbing to be little decrease. That is my little knowledge about it. Thank you.
Well said, Bright. Nana Kwame will say, well said. So far today, I've heard from Adongo Beneza, Thelma Ponsa, Andrea, Joshua Benin, Catherine, Minta, Ade said, Abdul Rashid, Veronica will say, and then Bright, Nana Kwame. All right. So as Bright said, internal environment of the body is what is inside. So what is inside is whether inside the cell or outside the cell, still is inside your body. So that is it, internal environment. External environment is external to the body. Okay, so the atmosphere, whether pressure, temperature, so anything external, okay, anything external is the external environment, as simple as that. So I just wanted to clarify that the internal environment doesn't mean intracellular environment or intracellular. You get it? Intracellular is inside the cell. Internal is inside the body. I wanted to make this difference so that when we are talking of it in homeostasis, you understand better. All right. Andrea, I saw your hand. Are you okay? All right. So let's continue.
Yes, okay. I wanted to give an idea about the external environment environment.
Okay, so that's what I've explained. So are you okay with it?
Okay, yeah, please.
All right.
Yes.
All right. So we have transport within the system. Okay. Before we move to transport within the cell, you're saying whenever, let's say, you take in oxygen through the lungs, the oxygen diffuses into the blood, which is an extracellular fluid. Then this plasma carries the oxygen. Then we will also have oxygen diffusing from the blood to the interstitial fluid surrounding the cell. Then the oxygen diffuses from the interstitial fluid into the cell, which is the intracellular fluid. That's how movement or transport occurs within. So all cells are surrounded with the interstitial fluid. And inside the cell, we said that is intracellular fluid. The rest is extracellular fluid. Under the extracellular fluid, we mentioned the interstitial fluid that surrounds the cell directly. Then you also have blood plasma that is found in the blood, and the transcellular that is found in some and in between some organs. So same way, at the end of metabolism, you can have carbon dioxide being diffusing across the cell membrane into the interstitial fluid. Then carbon dioxide will diffuse from the interstitial fluid into the blood. And blood will also take it to the lungs, and then carbon dioxide will diffuse from the blood into the alveolar sacs, where you breathe out the carbon dioxide. Same for nutrients after digestion. Same thing, gets into the blood, into the interstitial fluid, into the cells. Water, same way, same as other waste products, other substances that are excreted by the kidney. All right. Homeostasis. As I said earlier, homeostasis basically is maintaining nearly constant internal environment. Nearly constant internal environment. So taking the words into consideration, when you say nearly constant, meaning it's not always constant, okay? Meaning you have a range, okay, that this parameter will be fluctuating. For example, when you take temperature, we are saying that the normal temperature or the set point for temperature is 37 degrees Celsius. However, you can have normal body temperature ranging from 36.1 to 37.4 or 37.5. You get that is a range, so it's nearly constant. You are maintaining the temperature within two ranges, and that is homeostasis. Homeostasis basically is maintaining nearly constant internal environment despite the changes that occurs around you or from the external environment. So within your body, we are trying to maintain some parameters. Okay, example, level of glucose, level of water, level of ions, level of water, level of pressure. In fact, everything inside of you needs to be maintained in a constant environment such that the cells and the tissues can survive and work well. If these parameters, if there are changes that will deviate these parameters far away from the set point or normal range, then you are sick or you can die. You get it? So homeostasis, basically, we are trying to maintain nearly constant internal environment for the organs, the tissues, the cells to survive and work effectively. And as a human being, we are affected, homeostasis is affected day in and day out with the physical stimuli that we find around ourselves. such as heat, cold, lack of oxygen. You get it? Different pressure. When we find ourselves in a very low or high pressure, low oxygen level, high oxygen level, where we find ourselves in a very cold environment, very hot. All these physically affects the system. And therefore, the system has to generate a mechanism such that it will maintain the normal temperature or the normal state of the internal environment despite the changes that is occurring around us. So when you take, for example, cold-blooded animals, with cold-blooded animals, we are saying that when they are found in a very cold environment, their internal environment also becomes cold. Okay. But we as humans, we are not like that. Whether we find ourselves in a cold environment or hot environment, we have to maintain this 37 degrees Celsius temperature to make sure the cells are functioning properly. Then we are saying some changes may also occur inside the environment, such as drop in glucose due to lack of food. So it's not only the external factors that is affecting the internal environment. Sometimes also internally, there are changes that may occur that would account for disturbance of intestine, such as drop in glucose. When you are not eating, let's say 3 days of fasting, when that happens, you tend to have a reduced blood glucose level, and that would affect how well the cells will function, because they have been done in such a way that they're supposed to function under a normal level of glucose in their body. When there's a drop or when there is a high glucose level in the blood, it's going to affect. Then you have physiological stress, such as demand of work or school or anything that is causing stress, emotional or anything that is going to stress the system physiologically, also alters homeostasis. So in all this, as a healthy individual, we are trying to maintain the internal environment such that these cells will be able to, such that these the cells and organs would work well so that we will stay healthy. I believe that is clear. So that is all that we have on homeostasis. Then that's what we are looking at. So how then is the system able to work to maintain this homeostasis that we are talking about? Eric.
Please, madam, I want to find out about the internal aspect. Like the oxygen saturation level, can it also have influence in the homeostasis?
Yeah, oxygen saturation
level in the hemoglobin. Can it also be an internal factor?
Yes, but internal factor.
Hello?
Yes, it can, but what is actually the cause of that? You get it? You are looking at the cause or what actually challenges it. So when you say low oxygen saturation in the system, because maybe the normal volume of hemoglobin that needs to be produced in the red blood cells is reduced. Your blood cells are not having the normal level of hemoglobin it should have, and therefore it will pick low level of oxygen. You get it? So that can be a change in the internal environment that will cause homeostasis imbalance. However, when you find yourself in an environment whereby there's low oxygen, if there's low oxygen, that means you also have low oxygen saturation in your red blood cells. And that is as a result of an external physical factor. I hope that you get the difference. So low level of oxygen saturation, yes, it's a homeostatic imbalance. But what causes it? Is it an internal factor or an external factor. It can be there too. Eric.
Yes, please, madam.
Are you clear?
Yeah, I'm clear. Thank you.
Okay. So we have essential variables in a system that needs to be maintained within limits. Example, concentration of oxygen, concentration of carbon dioxide, or in the blood, concentration of nutrients, concentration of waste products in the blood, tissues, in organs, volume and pressures of the extracellular fluid. The common one that we will talk about is the blood, volume of blood, blood pressure. All these parameters need to be maintained: temperature, pH, concentration of electrolytes, sodium, potassium, magnesium, bicarbonate, phosphate. All these are supposed to be maintained in their normal levels. If they go too high, it will cause a problem. If they go too low, it will also cause a problem. So in homeostasis, you are trying to maintain all these parameters in their nearly constant internal environment. So as I've explained earlier, homeostasis is continuously being disturbed by external stimuli, such as heat, cold, lack of oxygen in the environment, pathogens, toxins, etc. Then you have internal stimuli. That is what changes, the changes that can occur inside the system. Temperature, pressure, concentration of blood. Okay, you can't say concentration of water. Concentration of blood, level of water or volume of water, glucose, salt, oxygen, physical and psychological distress. All these can internally change the normal state of the system. Okay, and therefore we are saying that it disturbs homeostasis. When it disturbs homeostasis, it can lead to homeostatic imbalance. When there's a mild or moderate imbalance, it leads to sickness. When there's severe imbalance, it can cause death. As nurses, I'm sure you've encountered lots of conditions and situations whereby there were homeostatic imbalance that led to sickness or death. So we are seeing different organ systems operate in harmony to produce homeostasis. As I made mention earlier, a lot of systems are coming together to make sure that your system functions well. And to take homeostasis into consideration, please give me a minute. So to mention homeostasis, we have two main systems that work together directly to ensure that the system is maintaining the constant environment for each of these parameters. These systems are the nervous system, then the endocrine system. So to just briefly explain how these systems work. The nervous system, is made of the central nervous system and then the peripheral nervous system. The central being the brain and then the spinal cord. The peripheral is the periphery or the nerve tissues that extends from the spinal cord, sending information to all parts of the body. So for example, when there is a change in temperature, you find yourself in a cold environment. We have some nerves that will send an information from the skin to the brain and tell the brain that, oh, you are in a cold environment. Therefore, the brain also interprets the information and bring out a response. Bring out a response to the skin to limit the volume of blood reaching the skin so that we conserve the heat within blood. That's an example. Then you can also talk of the endocrine system working together with the nervous system such that the endocrine system will produce some chemicals or hormones that will travel in the blood to a particular organ or a particular tissue for an activity to occur so that you control the parameter that is at stake. as we move on, we'll give more examples of these and better explain my point. All right. So we have homeostasis control mechanism or system. So this is a system that is working together to maintain homeostasis. And it's made up of 3 basic components: the receptors or sensors, the integrating or control center, then effectors. Receptors or sensors, integrating or control center, then effectors. So the receptors or sensors, from the name, it senses the change that has happened in the system. Then you have some nerves taking this change as an information to the integrating center. The integrating center here is either the brain or the spinal. Then you have the brain or spinal cord interpreting the information and bringing out a response to an effector. The effector can be a muscle gland that would enable an activity to occur to correct the change that has happened. But just some more.
Okay, madam. Good afternoon once again. Okay, please, my question is about how the nervous system and the endocrine system, they work together to ensure homeostasis in the body. For the nervous system, that part, I heard it right, but the endocrine system, can you please re-echo that part for me a bit?
All right. So I wanted to explain it further as I move on, but let me use this. Let me use this. So you know the endocrine system mainly works as secreting hormones, okay, to enable an activity to occur, basically. So, for example, when you are eating, right after eating, let's say in 30 minutes to 1 hour time, digestion occurs, and then there's absorption of end products. For example, carbohydrate, you get glucose. So this glucose is abundant in the blood, and therefore we need to correct that, bringing back the glucose level to the normal. So when it's abundant or in excess, the system, through the nervous system and then the endocrine system, work together to correct this. How? We are saying that we have some receptors, for example, in the blood vessel wall, that will sense high glucose level in the blood. To send this information through the sensory division to the brain or the spinal cord, mainly the brain. So the brain, specifically the hypothalamus, it will tell the hypothalamus is the integrating center where it actually integrates the information. Then it brings a response to the pancreas, okay, mainly the pancreatic islets. Tells the pancreas to secrete a hormone. So that's where the endocrine comes in. So it secretes a hormone called insulin. This insulin moves back into the blood and help with the uptake of glucose into the cells to store. For example, the skeletal muscle cell. Okay. So the nervous system, brain, the nerves are working together with secretion of hormones. That's in the endocrine system, to make sure we are correcting a change that has happened in the system. This is just the control of blood glucose. You have a lot of others that integrate the nervous and then the endocrine system together to make sure that parameter is corrected. This is just an example I have given. Just someone. Just someone, are you okay?
Yes, madam, I get it now. I appreciate that. Thank you.
All right. So with that example I have given, probably the class could explain the various examples that we have to make as you move on. All right. The control center, that is the brain or the spinal cord. And that's where the main deal is done. Okay, so in your brain, we have regions, different regions that controls different parameters, controls temperature, controls blood pressure. Okay, so you have different regions that does that. And we are saying that those regions, they would in fact bring out a response and tell maybe your temperature to increase or to decrease. So that's the integrating center. Then the effectors are muscles and glands that would perform a particular activity to correct what has happened. Then the receptors or the sensors are what senses the change. Okay, whenever there's a change, first of all, the receptors will sense it and then send an information to the control center through the sensory division. This is more of nervous system. Talk about it as you move on. Control center integrates the information, sends a response to the effectors. Effectors would act and then correct what has happened. Sorry. All right, Mercy, I don't go.
Hello, ma.
Yeah.
Please, I wanted to find out something. Is the integumentary system part of the system that provide homeostasis?
Integumentary system. So
Yes,
basically,
please.
what I was mentioning, that all the systems work cooperatively, okay, to ensure that you stay healthy. And that is it. But when you talk of homeostasis, the two main systems that are working together is the nervous and then the endocrine. Integumentary is part, but it's not the main system. So when you take the skin, for example, so we have the receptors that is found in the skin that will sense the change. But these same receptors are also a component of the nervous system. So the nervous system and then the endocrine are the two main systems that work together to control homeostasis. Other systems are also working, but the two main that are working together to maintain endocrine and then the nervous system. Mercy.
Yes, ma'am. I'm clear now. Thank you.
So receptors, they detect change in a controlled variable, and that is a stimulus. So change the stimulus. Whenever there's a stimulus generated, meaning there's a change detected. An example, change in temperature. Then this same receptors receives and responds to the changes by sending information to the control center. So after detecting the change, they send that information to the control center. And I said the control center is mainly the brain, the spinal cord. They determine the set point. So they already know that this is the normal fixed value you are supposed to get. And therefore, when the information gets there, they know that there's a shift or there's a change, and therefore they act accordingly. They analyze the input that has come and they send an output. Okay, so they send an output. The output goes to the effectors. The effectors here, they can be muscles, they can be glands. They receive directions from the control center. They carry out an instruction. So as you talk more of the examples that we are going to look out for, you explain all these point by point, which effectors are found in this example and what actually occurs. You're also saying that effectors produces a response that changes the controlled condition, the value of the variable. We have two basic mechanisms that the body uses to maintain homeostasis. The first one is feedback, and then the second one is feed forward. feedback, and then feed forward. So to give a basic idea or the basic difference between these, feedback, from the name, feedback, meaning something has occurred and you are feeding back, right? You are giving a particular response a particular information in response to what has happened. Feedback. Feed forward, still you are giving a particular response, but you are anticipating the change will happen in future. Should I take it again or you are clear?
Please take it again.
Feedback is that the change has happened and therefore we are working towards bringing it back to normal. You get it? Or we are working towards responding to the change that has happened. We are working towards responding to the change that has happened. Feed forward, the change has not happened yet, but we are working towards that change that will happen in future. Just your hand is up.
No, please, I forgot to lower my hand.
All right. I hope you get the basic difference between feedback and feed forward.
Yes, madam.
Yes. So feedback control imparts or feedback or respond to an influence in the input or stimulus. Anything that changes the environment. So we are saying that the change has happened and then we are trying to respond to the change. We can have two types of feedback. You can have negative feedback and positive feedback. Negative feedback and positive feedback. Negative feedback is that you are opposing the change, something negative. You are opposing what has happened. So, for example, when you have a rise in temperature above the normal set point or normal range, let's say 40 degrees or 38, 39, that is a change that has happened in the temperature variable, and therefore it's not helping the cells to function well. Then negative feedback will use a mechanism to bring the temperature down to about 36, 37. So negative feedback occurs when a change in controlled variable triggers a response that opposes the change that has happened. We are saying that most of the mechanisms that happens in the system is feedback. Sorry, feedback, and then it's also negative. Most of the mechanisms that helps maintain body homeostasis, negative feedback. I've given a couple of them as examples, but you can read more about the various examples of negative feedback mechanisms that the body uses to maintain some variables. So the few examples we are going to discuss is temperature regulation, blood sugar regulation, blood pressure control. All right, so we are saying negative feedback counteracts the stimulus, shutting off the response loop. So I'll use this as an assessment. 116. Temperature, sugar, and then pressure. All right. So from the little I've explained, using the homeostatic control system, where receptors will sense the change, then it will send it to the control center. Control center interprets the information and brings out a response to effectors. The effectors ask to correct what has happened. Can someone explain temperature regulation for me? how does the body maintain temperature, normal temperature levels, despite the cold or hot environment we find ourselves? Any other side said Kwame and then Beniza? Hayford, Kwabna. Judith. Judith.
Madam.
Yes.
Please, so the stimuli here is a rise in body temperature. So an individual has an increased body temperature that's above the normal range. So that means the normal temperature has been disturbed. And so the temperature sensor in the skin and then the hypothalamus, that's the receptors, will send signal to the main control center. So here the main control center for temperature regulation is the hypothalamus. In return, the hypothalamus will also send a command so that the sweat gland is going to control hormones. So the sweat gland in the skin is going to increase secretion of sweat. So the individual will sweat maybe profusely. By so doing, there's going to be a heat loss, or the blood vessel will dilate. These two can also work together. So either the sweat glands in the skin increase secretion, and then the blood vessels in skin also dilate. So if there is increased secretion of sweat, there's going to be a heat loss through evaporation, and then heat loss through radiation. So evaporation, because you are losing sweat. So let's say you see it on your skin. So it's going to cool the skin. So normal temperature will be restored.
Right. Well done. Well done. Well done, Judith Pusi Chumwa. Done. Let me take the last submission on temperature, then we continue. Agnes Enchua.
Okay, madam. So, as Judith explained earlier, homeostasis, the stimulus now will be the high body temperature. So when there is high body temperature, the receptor will sense the change in body temperature by sending a signal to the hypothalamus. That's the main control center, the brain. When the receptor sends the information to the brain, it will send command to the effectors. I will use the sweat glands. With the sweat glands, the individual will be sweating profusely. So during the profuse sweating, there will be loss of heat and the body heat will balance, causing the body temperature to regulate to its normal rate. Thank you.
All right, well done. Well done. So just as Agnes and Judith have explained, we already know that the normal body temperature is 37. That's the set point. But we have a normal range between 36.2 and 37.2. So normally, the body works to maintain the temperature levels between these two levels. So between 36 and 37.2. So whenever there's a change, that is, let's say, below 36.7 or above 37.2, it triggers this system to occur. Now, this is when we have rising, let's say it's 37.5 or 37.8 or 38. That's a rising temperature. The body works together in a mechanism that helps correct this homeostasis imbalance. First of all, as I mentioned, the first homeostatic control system is the receptor. This receptor senses the change that has occurred. And most of the times, we have these receptors in the skin and the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus is the thermoregulatory center of the body. That's where temperature is regulated. So this information is sent to the control center, which is the hypothalamus. Then the hypothalamus will integrate the information and bring out a response or a command to some effectors. As I mentioned, the effectors can be glands, it can be muscles, and so on. And to tell the effectors to act to correct the disturbance. So the command comes to the sweat glands. Then this sweat glands increases secretion of sweat. And we all know that the blood holds heat, okay? The blood holds heat. Therefore, when you increase secretion of sweat, that means increasing the volume of blood that is coming to the skin surface. So directly, you are going to increase dilation of blood vessels. When you increase dilation, you are opening up blood vessels for easy blood flow to the surface of the skin. When that happens, you also tend to increase the rate at which heat leaving the system. Also, sweat glands increase secretion of sweat in the. Then we are saying when all this is happening, we are tending to allow heat to leave the body, thereby bringing back the temperature down to its normal range. The opposite will happen when you are cold. So when there's cold temperature, stimulus, when you are having a cold temperature, same, this stimulus is what is going to be picked by the receptors. Receptors send it to the control center. A command will come to the blood vessels to constrict. When the blood vessels constrict, you are going to narrow the lumen of the blood vessel, thereby reducing the volume of blood flowing to the skin. When you do that, you are going to reduce, you are going to conserve the heat that is in blood, and you also tend to normalize blood temperature. Can someone also explain blood glucose level, either fasting or eating time?
Please, I have a question on the first part.
Yes.
Okay, my question was about the hypothalamus.
Yeah.
Per the explanation that, and per the way I've followed you, I thought the hypothalamus should be at the control center. So when it happened, it's part of the receptor. I don't know how it's part of the control center. At the same time, it's part of the receptor. I don't know whether you understand what
I get your question.
Yeah.
So receptors are nerve endings, okay? So receptors are sensory nerve endings. This is more of nervous system. I'll talk about it. So, and the hypothalamus too is part of the brain. We know the brain is made of nerves or neurons. So basically, we also have some receptors or nerve endings inside the hypothalamus that senses the change in temperature. And this same hypothalamus, as a tissue, a region of the brain, is also controlling the temperature. So we have nerve endings of neurons or nerves inside the hypothalamus that senses the change. Then the hypothalamus as a region of the brain also controls the center. So the hypothalamus is the thermoregulatory center. That is it. But aside receptors sensing change from the external, for example, when the internal is very cold, because blood is flowing to every part of the system. So definitely, there's also coldness within the brain, okay? Although most of the times they are regulated. But whenever there's change in temperature within the brain, we have receptor nerve endings within the hypothalamus that will sense that change. And they also still send the information to the main region of the hypothalamus to integrate the information and bring out the command. I don't know if I make myself clear.
Yes, so that means there are some organs that can act as receptors and at the same time can act as control centers. If the nerve endings are available to receive that impulse and those stuff, it can act as receptors and the control center at the same time. If I understood you right.
I'll say yes. I'll say yes, and mainly it's just the hypothalamus, not any other, because it's the hypothalamus that is regulating temperature. We don't regulate any temperature at anywhere again. The control center of temperature is the hypothalamus. You get it? But just like any region of the brain, which is made of neurons, and these neurons, we have sensory neurons as well. The sensory neurons, we have the receptors as endings of these sensory neurons. So they can sense change. Most of the neurons that make up the brain are interneurons. Okay. And we also have some of them in the spinal cord. And the sensory neurons, they make up the peripheral nervous system. But within the hypothalamus, we have these receptors also that senses the change in temperature. So I'll say yes, the thermoregulatory center is the hypothalamus, and it's also able to sense a change in temperature. Are you okay?
Yes, madam. We can continue. Thank you very much.
Those with their hands up, do you have questions?
Yes, madam.
Wow. All right. Mercy. I don't go.
Okay, please, madam. I want to ask something for clarification. Now we know that the hypothalamus is a receptor and then the control center.
When you say it that way, I won't agree with you. The hypothalamus is not a receptor. The hypothalamus as a whole is not a receptor. The center for regulation of temperature. But the hypothalamus, being part of the brain, is made of neurons. You get it? And some neurons are made of nerve endings called receptors. I don't know if they are making sense to the class. You can't say hypothalamus is a receptor. No, it's never done. It's passive.
Okay. So, madam, please. Yes, madam. Please. So, hypothalamus as a thermoregulatory center. I don't know. In some cases or in most cases, you see that if a child has temperature, mostly at night it sparks up. I don't know whether is it that at that time it's unable to control or send commands for like the whole activity to take place in order to regulate the center, or why is this so?
Okay. So generally not at night, but when most of the times we are sleeping, the nervous control system is not shut down, but it's slowed down. Okay. So if it slows down, mainly metabolism and all other activities are also slowed down, because initially I told you the nervous system basically controls every system in the body. For example, digestion. After eating, right after eating, you go and sleep. Digestion will slow down because nervous controls digestion. Although they will have another small brain in the digestive system that enables digestion. When you shut down or when you sleep, you slow down many processes, including thermoregulation. So when the person sleeps, then automatically that activity is also slowed down. So the body is trying to work to compensate for the changes, but since the person is sleeping, it slows that activity down.
Okay, thank you, madam.
Yeah,
yes,
okay?
madam.
Yeah.
Yes,
Madam,
please.
Sorry, I have a question concerning the hypothalamus. When a patient has rigor and the patient body temperature is high whilst he or she is feeling cold, is it that there is a the hypothalamus is not able to bring down the temperature? Like, I don't understand that mechanism.
Okay, so rigor is mainly related to the muscular system. Okay, rigor is related to the muscular system. So here, the hypothalamus will regulate the temperature, all right, but it will send a command to the muscle, the skeletal muscle. So the skeletal muscle will be the effector. But here, ATP is one of the key components in muscle contraction. And therefore, when you don't have ATP, you tend to have this rigor, because without ATP, contraction cannot happen. So although the hypothalamus is sending a command, doing its work, sending a command to the muscular system, if there's less ATP or if there's low calcium level, you have this rigor. You have low contraction of the muscle. Do I make myself clear? So it's not directly linked to hypothalamus, no. It's the effector muscle.
Okay, madam. But in most cases, though the problem is in the muscles, in most cases, the patients are always complaining that they feel cold, even though the body is hot. So is it that there is this thing, like a confusion in the receptors in the hypothalamus, or the signals are not being sent?
None of the above. There can be confusion in the receptors, and there can be signals not sent. Okay, so basically, as I said, is entirely made is at the effector muscle. That's when these controversies happen. Is at the effector muscle, because definitely there are receptors sensing the change. Hypothalamus sending its command, but if there are low levels of any of these components, including others that you'll be looking at in muscular system, then these things can happen. All right. So
Hello,
let's take assessments, then we end the class. We are almost done. Yes, yes.
Madam, please, in the pediatric unit, when children temperature are high, sometimes we are advised to do typic sponging, and the water we always use is lukewarm. Now the patient body temperature is high, and we are not using cold water, but we are looking lukewarm water. What is the physiology?
All right. So that boils down to responsiveness or sensitivity. So the normal temperature needs to be maintained. So if you are to directly use a cold water to counteract that high temperature, it can alter the function of the nervous system or the nervous control. So directly you have to try and use lukewarm to minimize the direct or shift change that might occur. I don't know if you get my explanation. Okay.
Yes, please.
You are trying to maintain a temperature around 37, not to bring it downwards. Number one. Number two, okay, in order to avoid that sharp curve between that rise in temperature and then the normal temperature, we need to use lukewarm water to to gradually turn back the temperature to the normal range. So to prevent sharp shift, and also to maintain the normal temperature other than moving it down to very low temperature.
Okay.
Please, are you clear?
All right. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, so to maintain normal, to make sure that the nervous control responsible for regulation of temperature is not altered. Okay.
Okay. Okay. I also have a follow-up clarification regarding the control center. The hypothalamus is the regulator regarding body temperature. So a person who is having a problem with the hypothalamus, what then happened to that person? Is there any other mechanism that can be used? The body can pathway the body can pass through to correct any temperature?
For now, I'll say no, but I'll look into it more carefully. For my physiology basis, I know the hypothalamus is what actually regulates temperature. I don't know of other organs or any other part of the brain. I know it's hypothalamus. So if there's any malfunction in the hypothalamus, obviously it's going to affect this activity. Direct. It's going to affect it.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. So let's take assessment. Class, kindly read on the negative feedback control of blood glucose, negative feedback control of blood pressure. Please mute your microphones for us. Mute your microphones for us. Okay, so negative feedback of glucose, negative feedback of blood pressure. The other way. So glucose when you have eaten, when you are fasting. Blood pressure when you are having high pressure, when you're having low pressure. How does the body work to correct that? Then we look at the positive feedback, intensifying the change. We have some examples. We have childbirth, we have lactation, we have blood clotting. Kindly read on all these. We'll have a discussion because we have to move to transport in our next class. So we are going to use the examples here to better explain the feedback mechanisms in our next class. Then finally, we look at the feed forward, which is very simple. I'll talk about that shortly before we start that day's class. So the reading assignment is on the examples of the positive feedback, the examples of negative feedback mechanics, and how that corrects the changes that has occurred. All right, any other questions? John, your hand is still up.
Madam, this is Bright. Nana Kwame was saying.
Yes, Bright.
Yeah, please, can you go over a little about the negative feedback and the positive feedback? If you can summarize it for me.
Right, are you eating?
Yes, please. So since morning, no food.
All right, so to summarize positive feedback and negative, I didn't talk of positive feedback. Right, so let me give you a brief summary. So with negative feedback, we are saying a change has occurred and then we are opposing that change. For example, your temperature is 37, but your temperature has risen to 38, 39. So you oppose that change to bring it back to normal. That is negative feedback. Then positive feedback, you are intensifying the change. The change has happened, but you are trying to increase the change that has happened for an event to occur. For example, childbirth. So there is production of oxytocin at the end. And this oxytocin helps with contraction of the uterus to enable the baby to move out, okay, to be born. So the more the head of the baby pushes against the cervix, we are saying it sends an impulse to the brain. The brain interprets the information and brings out a response for oxytocin to be secreted. Then this oxytocin moves to the uterus to tell the uterus to contract more and more. As that is happening, we have the cervix hitting, the head of the baby hitting the cervix and that is going to happen in a cycle till the baby is born. So you're saying this positive feedback, oxytocin is produced is in higher levels, and it's not normal. But in that situation or event, we need to produce more and more till the baby is born. So we intensify the change till an event occurs. Who asked the question?
Right.
Right. Are you okay with the difference? Right. Are you okay with the difference?
Yeah, that means what you said is the positive feedback to intensify for a change to occur.
Yes, that is positive. Yes. Okay. Negative, you are opposing the change.
Can that thing happen at the same time, like using the childbirth as a scenario?
No, with the childbirth, our focus is on uterine contraction and then the baby coming out, and is the function of the hormone that basically acts on the uterine to enable that to happen. Unless you are controlling another parameter using a negative feedback, that could happen. But with childbirth, it's positive feedback.
Understood.
Right.
Thank you. Understood. Thank you.
All right. You have 3 minutes. Any other?
Okay. So, madam, so for the reading assignment, sorry for the interruption, though. You made mention of we should read about the negative feedback for the blood glucose, blood pressure, and it seems I couldn't copy all.
Blood glucose, pressure, and then that's the two.
That's the only two.
And and then the positive blood clotting, childbirth, and then lactation.
That's for the positive feedback.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you are able to move on, look at the feed forward. That's very simple. Feed forward.
Okay.
All right. Any other?
No.
Mustafa.
Madam, please, I need some clarification about the heat regulatory system.
Yeah.
It is said that in children, the CNS, the central not fully developed for impulses to be sent to the brain to for this for other activities to happen. So I don't know how this heat regulatory system is happening in children.
Yeah, so in children, you still have development of the hypothalamus.
Okay.
And then as there's still development ongoing, that's where you need other external support, such as
Hello.
Okay.
Hello, Mara, please. I can hear you.
Hello.
Hello, madam. I didn't hear what.
Class, can you hear me?
I can now hear.
Yes.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
And can you see the slide? And can you see the slide?
Yes, madam.
Yes, madam.
Yes, ma'am. I can see it.
Okay, so let's continue. I think the class will end. Let's continue next week, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Thank you,
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh.
All right. Good day.
Hello?
Hello.
Yes, please, let's continue next week, okay?
Yes,
Okay, madam.
Thank you, madam. Have a good day.
Easy.
Bye.
Bye-bye.